Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of Crafting with Cosplay Fabrics. My name is Indra and today I want to show you about satin stitching. So satin stitching is a really awesome way to create dimensional patterns or decorative stitching added to your costumes. This is a great way to combine different fabrics. It's a great way to clean up some edges if you have like different fabrics going on and you want to make edges look really nice. It's also a really nice way to create some like decorations if you don't want to combine fabrics. So it's a really awesome technique. It's very simple. It is a little bit time consuming, but I want to show you some examples on how to do it yourself with your sewing machine. Before we start, I would like to talk to you a little bit about materials. For this particular example that I will be giving you, I am using heat and bond. However, I am using Ultra Hold, but you do not have to use this for your fabrics. That is just what I had on hand. You can just use regular heat and bond. That is when you want to combine two fabrics. You do not need that if all you're doing is just doing satin stitching as a form of decorating. We'll also be needing some really good thread. When you are doing this and you are using a zigzag, it can catch on your machine if you're using a wrong type of thread and needle. So make sure that you have that. You want to use something that is heavy duty, maybe one of those like all-purpose like dual threads, the ones that are really great for heavy projects. So make sure that you have that on hand. And for fabrics, it's really your fabrics of choice. I will be using these beautiful brocades from the new Yaya Han collection, and these will be available at JOANN Stores and JOANN.com. So make sure that you check those out. I tried to pick two different fabrics that I thought would look really beautiful together. And as far as other materials, it's the usual of just scissors, pens, of course your sewing machine, and if you are using the heat and bond, make sure that you have your iron and ironing board as well. For your sewing machine, make sure that it does have the ability to sew zigzag. I know that some machines are just simple, just straight stitch. So do make sure that your sewing machine is capable of having a zigzag and that you control both the length and the width of the stitch. Let's get started on creating this method. And this is sort of like an applique method. So we want to make sure that when we're doing our heat and bond and we're combining the fabrics, we're just basically following the directions of the packaging. So we want to have our heat and bond piece be slightly smaller than our fabric. And then we're going to place that heat and bond piece on the back side of the fabric that we want to use as the applique, as that like decoration. So then we're going to go ahead and iron that. And then once that is cooled, we're going to transfer our pattern, whatever design you want, onto the heat and bond. Of course, you want to have already figured out your pattern and making sure that the heat and bond piece that you are cutting is big enough for that pattern piece, that little, like in my case, that little like flower. So you want to go ahead and then transfer that design onto the heat and bond, and then you can go ahead and cut that out, peel off the backing, and then we're going to iron that decoration or that little flower star like what I cut out. We're going to go ahead and place that on top of our main fabric, which for me is the zebra fabric. So we're gonna go ahead and iron that, and do be careful because some fabrics are super light, so when you iron and when you're using heat and bond, it might transfer some of the fabric to the top fabric. So make sure you test these things out beforehand. Once you have those two and they are cooled, then we can go ahead and do the satin stitching. So we want to do some tests before. So you want to go ahead and try a little fabric piece, and you want to do this with the main fabric that you're going to, either one of the main fabrics, honestly, it works fine, that you're going to be using. So just testing out to see your stitches, how wide or how long you might need them to be. So just kind of play around and see what you prefer. You will find that you might have to do some pulling if you don't have something like a walking foot. I highly recommend using a walking foot. I understand not everybody has it, but it's something that definitely helps with these types of projects. It's really up to you how you want it to look. I know that sometimes it's nice just to have just a general, satin stitching going on, but you will find some spots that are a little bit bare, or that aren't like totally like super tight. So make sure that you play around with whatever your preference may be. You might just want something simple, or you want something really specific with like the threads being really tight together. So make sure that you have that to your liking before starting this, and then going ahead and going over the edges, and you just sew. And you can do like different threads, so you can have different like color combinations, or you can even go ahead and sort of freestyle a design over your fabric, and you will be left with a sort of applique look on your costume, on your garment. And it is an awesome way to add some dimension, some beautiful design on top of your fabric. This is also great if you're doing any specific designs on top of your fabric. Like, I know that some fabrics they just require very specific, like maybe flower motifs, or even things that you can't really draw or paint on top of the fabric. So this is a really great way to do that, especially if you don't want to use something like a ready-made applique that doesn't exactly match your costume. This is also a great way if you're using something like a iron-on vinyl or something like that, but you want to add that little bit of extra like richness to it. Threads will always make it look not only more textured, more dimensional, but also add that extra oomph to your design. So one last tip is, if you are only going to be doing this as like a sort of like a free design, of course you can draw on your fabric and then go over and do your satin stitching right on top. What you want to do is, if you find that you're using really thin fabric, is that you want to use a hoop that you can stretch out that fabric over the hoop and then do your satin stitching. But you also want to use a stabilizer. You're going to need something that's going to basically keep your fabric totally like taut as you are sewing. Otherwise you're gonna see a bunch of like fabric kind of like gathering as you're sewing. So definitely play around with your fabrics, with like little samples and little cuts, so that you can see how you need to do this stitching. All it is just zigzag stitching. I prefer to do like really wide stitches, and then just really thin like length of the stitch. So I hope that this helps you. I hope that you like this tutorial, and I hope this gives you some ideas for your future projects. Thank you so much for watching, and let us know in the comments if you have any questions, or if you'd like to see any other tutorials or anything else that you would like for us to cover. And I hope that you like and subscribe, and I will see you soon for another tip, trick, or tutorial featuring Cosplay Fabrics. Bye-bye.